The following podcast is a Dear Media production.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Real Stuff podcast and our first ever live recording with a live audience in New York City. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm about to cut over to the live recording. I'm just recording this intro for you here in the studio. And this was such an exciting moment for us as a show. We've now had over 100 episodes. We are in season 3 of this incredible show that has brought together such a great community. And I cannot believe we finally had a chance to sit in front of actual people and talk and share stories. So today's episode is really a deep dive on a very personal story that I shared on my Instagram. You may have seen me talking about my recent sleep incident, also known as my night terror. I posted about it. A lot of you guys read about it in my newsletter, but in this podcast episode, I'm going deep on what actually happened, the nitty-gritty details of the whole story, and it feels like such a good use of the real stuff to talk about a topic that's so deeply personal and also taboo, because I know this happens to a lot of people. I've actually since heard from a lot of you who experience night terrors or who have family members and friends who have had these situations when you're with them, and it made me feel so much less alone to hear the number of you out there who wrote to me saying this happens to you too. But of course, the episode is not just a super scary, super sad situation. I wanted to bookend it with the wellness practices that I do in my everyday life, and specifically the sleep optimization practices that I've been working on adding back in on the back of this incident. Because now that this happened to me, I've had sort of this realization that I need to make a change in my lifestyle habits if I'm going to hopefully avoid this kind of thing happening to me recurringly in the future. So I've made a lot of changes to my sleep, and I'm so excited to dive in and share them with you today. So let's cut on over to our live recording at the Ludlow House in New York City. Hi, everyone. Welcome to what is the first ever live taping of the Real Stuff podcast, which is kind of crazy. We've now had over 100 episodes of this show across multiple seasons, and I've still yet to sit in front of a live audience like this. One of my absolute favorite things to do, to see faces looking back as I'm talking instead of a camera. So thank you all for showing up and being here today. A huge thank you to Bayer Consumer Health for putting this event together. We are live at the Ludlow House in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And for people who don't know much about the Real Stuff podcast, this is really a place where we get real about a lot of topics. Often it's about sex or money or mental health. Today, we are getting real about wellness. And in my mind, that's just kind of bringing it back to the basics. I want to backtrack just about an article that I read in the past couple months that was sort of the impetus behind this episode for me. I do a lot of reading about health and wellness, and I'm subscribed to this one Substack. It's free. It's called Syllabus Health, and the author is Eric Villanova. And he wrote a piece. The title of the article was called Stop Majoring in the Minors. And essentially what his piece was about is, in today's day and age, with wellness and social media, we are obsessing over these small little wellness trends and tips and changes that we can make that honestly don't move the needle much when it comes to us being well. We're trying to constantly optimize in the wrong areas, and we're just ignoring the big ticket items that are actually going to make a difference when it comes to health. I have a quote from his article because I think it sort of encapsulates the vibe of what he's talking about here. The quote says, "The wellness industry has figured out that complexity sells. Nobody is lining up for a course on sleeping 8 hours and eating vegetables, but they will pay $297 to learn about optimizing their circadian rhythm through red light exposure at precisely 6:47 a.m. while drinking hydrogen water and wearing blue light blockers calibrated to their specific corneal density." For me, that is just the gist of what's happening on social media right now. We're forgetting the most basic foundational principles of health, and we are focusing on minuscule things. If I were to elaborate on what those pillars are for me and just the top 3 things that just are the foundation of health, for me, it's getting good sleep, eating somewhat real food, and moving my body. And as long as those 3 things are taken care of and I'm doing those 3 things well, I have laid the groundwork and foundation.
and everything else tends to be okay. And of course, I didn't mention mental health in there. I think today we're mostly focusing on physical wellness, but I do believe mental health plays a factor in your physical health. And I want to caveat this by saying I'm not arguing that those little small trends and little things that you can do won't make any difference. The way I think of it is almost like a video game, and you have levels that you can unlock. And many of us are just on level 1. We have not even unlocked level 1. So how is apple cider vinegar or, hydrogen water, pistachio milk? Like, we can't be getting to level 2 until we have dialed in level 1. And I just think most people have not, focused on the basics yet. And then, of course, once you get past level 1, I do think that making small refinements and tweaks and being a little bit of an optimizer and looking into biohacking, then you can maybe start to notice little changes here and there from making really small tweaks. We were supposed to have for the live studio audience, so we don't have these yes and no paddles, so I'm going to use hands instead. But Bayer did a national consumer survey. They surveyed over 2,000 Americans on their wellness habits. And I want to ask you guys, just by a show of hands, your answers to these questions, and then I will tell you how that stacks up with the result of the poll. So by a show of hands, who in this room agrees with the statement that staying well is as much about good daily habits as it is just avoiding getting sick? All right, we've got a lot of hands. According to their survey, 85% of people agreed with that stat. Next stat, mental and physical wellness are connected, and an imbalance in one will lead to an imbalance in the other. Who agrees? There we go. Oh, hands shot up for that one. 77% of people agreed. Next one says, making good wellness decisions makes me feel more confident. All right, almost everyone. 83% of people agreed with that. Next one says, my current wellness routine is doing enough to help me feel ready for the day. Ooh, we got like four people. According to the study, 78% of people were there. So you guys need this podcast right now. I'm excited you guys are here. We don't need to do hands for the last one, but they did also do a test. What is the most effective way to overcome symptoms when they're not feeling well? And 45% said allowing their body to rest. 38% said sleeping as much as possible. And then 32% said taking over-the-counter medicine for symptom relief. So just to bridge together, these findings for me truly validate why foundational routines matter when it comes to health. I really feel like the best thing I can do when it comes to my health is focus on those 3 pillars: the sleep, real food. I'm saying somewhat real food because, I love my packaged food, and getting movement. And as long as those 3 things are dialed in, I feel like the only other thing I can do is just have some basic trusted products on hand in my wellness toolkit and in my arsenal to help tackle symptoms if something does come up that I couldn't foresee. And when symptoms do pop up, it is just vital for me that I have products on hand that actually do what they say they're going to do and that are trusted and respected by science and doctors. Specifically for me, these symptom relief products help me when it comes to sleep. And that's not to say that the products I'm talking about are products that put me to sleep, but relieving symptoms prior to going to sleep is paramount for me. I'm sure we all can attest to the fact that when you have cold and flu symptoms or you're not feeling well, that will lead to a restless night. 2 examples of products that do that for me: Afrin, Alka-Seltzer Plus, truly help with symptom relief prior to going to sleep. Speaking of sleep, I want to get a little bit into my relationship with sleep because it's changed a lot over the years. Sleep and I did not have a love at first sight relationship. When I was in high school, I hated sleep, and I just was convinced that I didn't need it. And my high school boyfriend, who is now my husband, sitting right here in the front, can attest to the fact that I just didn't, I don't know, I somehow survived on very little sleep. And the 2 of us notoriously would stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. on the phone with one another, followed by waking up at 6:30 to get to school. I don't know how I'm alive. I genuinely don't know how I've made it out of high school, because apparently teens are the ones who need the most sleep. And then as you get older, you need less and less sleep. For me, it's been opposite. I was fine somehow back then. And now, only as I've entered into my adult years, I have fallen head over heels in love with sleep. And it has just become this sacred time in my day. And it's become something that I relish in. And something that I pour a lot of energy into optimizing and tracking and improving all the time. As far as sleep hygiene, I've made a lot of changes over the years. I'll just dive into a few of the things that I do at night. I try as best as I can to avoid eating meals super close to bedtime. We have 2 young kids, and we are typically eating at 5:30 p.m. these days, which is great. As if I can get my meal in with them at that time, bedtime is a lot better for me. Much to my husband's dismay, at bedtime in my room, it becomes like a Lucie is closing up shop zone. I got my eye mask, I have my mouth tape, I have earplugs, I cocoon my pillow around my head. It is just like I'm truly gone from the night. Once I say goodnight to him and tape up, it's like there's no more talking. Don't ask me any questions. I also have my room set to a nice, consistent, I would say 68 to 69 degrees. It's nice and cool in there. We have blackout shades. There's no light leaking in. I do sleep with a baby monitor on my phone that's up all night, but I put it on the floor and I turn the brightness all the way down and I try to not have any light escaping from that. I don't have a alarm clock that's putting light in the room. I know some people go even further. Some people are like red light all through the house. We can't do that at this stage of our lives, but we're doing a lot. And I feel like our sleep hygiene has improved as a couple. Kids for me have probably been the biggest wild card as far as disrupting my sleep over the years, both from pregnancy and then having babies and being woken up in the middle of the night. And now at this point, we have a almost 16-month-old and a 4-year-old. And there are still occasional, I would say multiple times a week, someone calls for something. There's a stuffy lost in a bed. Someone's calling out. So my sleep is not chronically through the night, but everything is pretty dialed in compared to where it was in the past. I also wear this wearable tracker on my finger, and this is probably the number one way that I'm able to distill down exactly what's happening with my sleep, even if I wake up and I can't remember. A lot of people who wear trackers like this, they buy them for the daytime stats. They want to know their steps. They want to know their activity levels. Truly, I could not care less about what's happening during the day. Obviously, movement is important, but I know I'm moving, so I'm not looking at this and seeing what cardio zone I got into in my workout. Instead, this tracker for me is my sleep tracker. In fact, I often charge it during the day because I just need it at night. I used to wake up in the morning first thing and reach for Instagram or reach for my email. And now I wake up and I reach for the stats of this to see how I've slept. I want to call out that when it comes to mental health, I've heard from a lot of my friends that they don't like using trackers like this because it actually increases their anxiety. Maybe, they say maybe I thought I had a good night of sleep, but then I checked my tracker and it said that I didn't sleep well. And now I'm spiraling because maybe I didn't sleep well and maybe I should feel crappier than I feel. For me, I don't know, maybe it's perpetual optimism, whatever it is, I have somehow jerry-rigged my brain so that this to me, it's only positive. It can only be a positive result. Either I actually got a bad night of sleep and I wake up and I don't feel well and I look at the stats on this and it usually reassures me that my sleep was actually fine, or I wake up and I'm feeling amazing and the stats tell me you didn't sleep great, but I'm like, that's not true. I feel great. It's basically like I just change the perspective of how I'm looking at the tracker. And usually I wake up and it makes me feel good. If someone doesn't have any sort of sleep tracking device, just to give you a little background about what this tracks for me. So it looks at all the different stages of sleep that I could be in. It tells me how long I was in REM sleep, how long I was in deep sleep, light sleep, how many hours or minutes I was awake throughout the night if I was tossing and turning. It gives you a resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, which is like the variability between beats of your heart. It even tells you if you have signs of any biometric strain. So that's usually a sign that something is straining your body and that you're getting sick. Just a little anecdote about how this has worked. In the past, I have woken up in the morning, no symptoms, and my tracker says minor signs of biometric strain. And then 24 hours later, I tested positive for COVID. So that's how precise it is. It's also the sleep tracking is so precise that it will tell me exactly what sleep stage I was in at the time I woke up. And usually I'll be able to validate this because, you all know the feeling of being in the middle of a dream and then you get woken up by something. When I wake up, usually to my son screaming, "I'm ready to get up." Those days when I wake up and I'm in the middle of a dream, my tracker will tell me I was in REM sleep and then I was awake, versus some other days, maybe my REM cycle thankfully was completed and then I've moved into light sleep and then I was awoken from light sleep. And so it's always valid. It always knows what sleep cycle I was in just based on my heart rate, which is insane. It's been really wild for me to analyze. I've been wearing this for now almost 4 years. So I've been through multiple pregnancies wearing it and postpartum periods, and I've been able to see the chart of how things have changed over time. A couple of examples would be heart rate variability, which is a marker that I love looking at because for me, I know what my baseline HRV should be. So I know when it gets lower, it's often related to having had a drink or often related to getting sick. In pregnancy, notoriously, your HRV is a lot lower than your baseline. And so when I sort my heart rate variability chart by year, I can see the years that I was pregnant, it was a major dip, and then postpartum, it shoots right back up again. Similarly, resting heart rate, that's a number that is typically higher when you're pregnant. So in the pregnancy years, that was majorly elevated and then drops down almost like the day I have a baby, that drops down. Those have been really fun markers to look at, as well as tracking when I do have a glass of wine and seeing, oh wow, my heart rate variability is way lower than it normally is because I had that glass of wine. And sometimes it's validating for me that my body is actually reacting to these external triggers and inputs in a way that it's expected to. When I talk on the Real Stuff podcast, I like to get real and I like to tell real personal stories. And so long as we're doing an episode about sleep and we're talking about sleep, I think I need to open up about a recent event in my life that happened as pertains to sleep that really shook me up, sort of has been the driving force behind me wanting to start optimizing my sleep a lot more and taking better care of my sleep. So before we get into the story, let me give you guys some background. If you don't know anything about me or my sleep patterns in the past, probably there's only one person in the room who does. I have had night terrors for the past, I want to say 10 years. If you don't know what a night terror is, I'm sure it looks very different for everyone. For me, the way this looks is that I will be asleep in my bed, my eyes will open, and I will register where I am. I will know where I am. I will see the space, but I will somehow also be still sleeping. And then my brain will show me things that aren't actually in the room. Most of the time, it's bugs or animals. And sometimes it's people and things and just scenes. But it's such a hard thing to explain because I am in the middle of sleeping, but then I'm also seeing the space around me. In the past, this really was focused on insects and bugs, which is disturbing. And unfortunately for my poor husband, who hates nothing more than mice, there was one incident where I woke him up screaming that a rat has just fallen on his head. I'm sorry, Michael. That's how this originated. And I don't know that I could have ever pinpointed what was going on in my life the night that I had these incidences. It was not like a direct tie to, oh, I'm extremely stressed this week and then I have a night terror. Granted, I'm one of those people who is just like, I'm not stressed, even when I am probably stressed. So maybe I'm always stressed and I just don't know it, but there's nothing in my life that I knew was causing this. It just would happen randomly and occasionally. 2025, I would say they calmed down and I didn't have that many. And when I did have them, they were not super vivid. It was not like I was seeing things in my room. It would just be me sort of waking up in a panic where my body actively feels fear as if something really scary was just coming towards me, or, you know, it's like those dreams where you're falling asleep and then you start to fall or something's running at you. And in my dream, it would be like I'm at the very scary moment of a dream and I wake up in my bed and I'm actively yelling in fear about the dream. And then Michael, who's now come up 100 times, will soothe me and say, it's okay, you're asleep. And then I will come to and recognize that I've been asleep the whole time and my heart will be racing, but I will take a few deep breaths and I will go back to sleep, and that's sort of the end of it. And that's what was happening occasionally in 2025. That happened 1 or 2 times until last month. Here's what happened from my perspective. I was having a dream, and it was just a scary dream where I was running away from something. So I was running, it was like a house I was running away from. And I'm sure you all know the feeling of being in a dream and being chased, and then you're kind of like fading into the floor and you're like clawing your way through the mud and you're being like quicksanded down and you can't move. And so I was running and I was trying to get out. I was in a dark forest and I heard a voice yelling at me, "Stop, stop, stop." And in my dream, that was something that was chasing me. So I was trying to get away from it. And I'm just like clawing my way through the floor. Then I have the moment where I come to. So I wake up. And I could tell I had just been screaming because my voice is raw and my throat feels dry. And I come to, and normally at this point, I'm in bed next to Michael and he is telling me, "You're okay, you're okay." But this time when I came to, I was basically in my closet, like halfway across the room, not in bed. For someone who hasn't woken up in the middle of a scary dream, it's like your body just viscerally went through the experience of being in the scary dream. So my heart is going like 150 beats per minute. I am so scared. I see Michael sitting in bed and I'm just feeling fear and panic. And I'm like, where am I? Why am I not in my bed? I jump into the bed. He's hugging me. He's calming me down. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I don't know. What just happened? What time is it? I look over at my nightstand to go grab my phone and check the time. And my phone, where it normally is nothing is on my nightstand. My nightstand is typically, if anyone's ever been in my room, my nightstand is never clean. It has like 5 books on it, all my mouth taping supplies. I have a lamp. I have a glass of water. Like I can never get that thing clean. Somehow it's bare empty with just the lamp pushed into the back corner. And I'm just so confused. I'm like, what? Where is all my stuff? So I say, "Michael, turn on your lamp. Everything's gone." He turns on his lamp, and that is when I see it. Blood is dripping down my hand. It's gushing down my palm. It's on my shirt. It's on my sheets. It's on the pillowcase. There's just blood everywhere. And I am panicking and so confused. That's when Michael tells me from his perspective what had just happened in the room. I started having one of my terrors in bed and I started yelling, at which point he was trying to calm me down, but I wouldn't listen. And I got out of the bed. Either I pushed everything off my nightstand or I accidentally ran into my nightstand and everything fell, including my glass of water, which shattered on the wooden floor of my room. And then I proceeded to get down and start crawling through the shards of glass on the floor, which was the moment in my dream where I was crawling through the forest. And I'm just getting cut and sliced and crawling and yelling. And I hear, "Stop, stop." And that's Michael yelling at me, "Stop, stop," from the bed. And I am still in my dream. And then when I finally wake up, I'm halfway across the room. I cannot even express how terrifying, let alone just waking up and being across the room. But then the lights come on and there's cuts and blood. And it's also so disorienting to have had some physical harm just done to you, but you didn't even feel it because you were asleep. Michael goes down to get the broom to start sweeping up the glass, and there's water all over the floor. So we go into full-on cleaning mode, but he didn't even know it at the time. I was so confident that I had just gotten attacked by a stranger. Like I was like so confident that I didn't do that because I was asleep and I had no memory of what just happened. So as he's cleaning up the glass, I'm literally looking through the house, looking for a person. I'm like, there's got to be someone here. Turns out it was no one, just me. But anyway, the next morning we wake up and we have a discussion and we're like, what are we going to do about this? Because I need some serious help. This is not okay. Obviously, step 1 is no more glass next to my nightstand. Like I have my water bottle, stainless steel water bottle now. We're never doing glass in the bedroom again. That's step 1. Obviously, step 2, I know I should be speaking to some sort of specialist. My first step was to talk to my therapist, and I had a discussion with her about it. And 100%, she was tying it to stress and just underlying anxiety and stress and really needing to prioritize making my pre-bed ritual something that calms me down. Now that I actually think about it, December for me, which was the month this happened in, was one of those out of control work months where you're just in go, go, go mode. And I was building a new course and we had a million things happening. I believe the night that this happened, I was in my bed at 9 p.m. on my laptop, finishing up work stuff. Of course, if this does continue, I think like some sort of major sleep specialist is needed. For now, I think step one is the lifestyle changes. Try to really level up my sleep routine so that I can see if with just my own interventions, I could stop these night terrors from happening. At that point, I sort of set a very sacred nighttime ritual for myself of what I'm going to do. Every single night, our kids are in bed around 7:30. So after that time, the two of us are in clean the house, reset the house mode, work together. Usually I like to listen to a podcast at that time. Michael's doing his own thing, and we sort of separate, get ready for bed, and then meet up in bed. I think the biggest rules I'm setting for myself are the laptop does not come into the bed. The phone, which is always next to my bed, is not looked at once I get into bed. I do think there is some benefit to some sort of comfort content, watching something that's comforting. I've been trying to avoid scrolling on social media, and so I've recently found myself going on YouTube, watching some of my favorite creators before bed, all from a comforting lens. I'm looking up specific keywords. I'm looking up things that just make me feel good. I'm absolutely trying to be, as far as the hours, off my phone an hour before bed. No food a couple hours before bed. I'm even trying to limit my water intake a couple hours before bed so that I don't have to pee overnight. Another thing we've added in is the two of us together doing a short 5 to 10 minute meditation or a breath work exercise before we put on our mindless show. Mouth tape, earplugs, eye mask, pillow around my head. All those things happening before the going to sleep stage has so far, it's been only a month or so, but we haven't had another problem like that again. So I'm grateful that I was able to somewhat solve that problem. But I think the whole story just reminds me that we often take our health for granted, and we often put ourselves in hustle mode and go mode because we feel like that's what we need to do to get everything done. And it's really, it's like one of those analogies of life sending a truck your way and you get hit by a truck and then you're like, okay, that was a big wake up call. Now I need to do something about it. And I feel that was that moment for me. And so I'm taking matters into my own hands. But my hope is that you guys out there listening, both live and whoever's listening on the podcast, even if you haven't had a moment like that, maybe you can use this as a reminder that that time before you go to sleep is so important. And sleep is so valuable for our overall health. For example, even people who drink something like coffee or have caffeine really close to bed and say that it doesn't affect their sleep, or they say that they can still go to sleep after a espresso martini at 10 p.m., that might be the case. Maybe you can go to sleep. I absolutely cannot, but maybe you can. But I am telling you that scientifically it is messing with your sleep and it's not optimal. And so really thinking about how to make your sleep setup and your environment and all the things you're doing throughout your day optimal so that your body can restore and recharge. We are like iPhones. We need to be charged too, and we just won't work if we're not charged. As you all know, today's episode sponsor is Bayer Consumer Health. I am a paid partner. They also so amazingly set up this beautiful event at Ludlow House, so I want to give a major thank you. Honestly, as a creator, I work with brands every single month, and it's not every single month that a brand comes to me for a partnership that is a brand that I feel so strongly about as I do the lineup of Bayer's products. These products that you could see behind me are genuinely products that I have used and trusted for almost my whole life, brands that doctors have recommended to me time and time again, and at the end of the day are just products that actually do what they say they're going to do. And there's, to the point of this conversation, no layer of fluff or trendiness or anything like that. It's just the basics, the foundations to help with symptom relief where you need it. I'm sure you guys, if you go to Bayer's website and look at all of their products, I'm sure you will, know almost all of them from the drugstore. But for me, I would say top 4. Number 1 is Afrin. My followers know that I have dealt with some sinus and congestion things over the past couple years. Afrin for me is one of those products in my toolkit that when I use, and it can really help clear up my nasal passages and relieve the congestion that I'm feeling. And as a note, if anyone is using Afrin, always use it as directed. Check with your doctor, all of that. Alka-Seltzer Plus. This has been another major one that I remember my parents giving to me when I was a teen. And even to this day, it's such a good product to just have on hand, because even when I'm dialing in the sleep, even when I'm moving and I'm eating well and I feel like I'm doing all the things that should keep me healthy, I still have kids. I still have young kids that are coming home from preschool. I exist in the world where there's viruses and flus and colds going around. So I still do get sick. And having products like Alka-Seltzer Plus, just a tablet, dissolves in water, comes in all different flavors, has a daytime and nighttime version, is incredible for symptom relief for things like fever, decongestion, cough, cold, all of that. And then 2 other products. My followers know that I love gummies and gummy vitamins and gummy supplements, and I would always choose to take something in a gummy form if I could. So number 1, side note for people, because I have celiac disease, these products don't actually say gluten-free on the label. So just calling that out. One is the Mira Fiber gummies. If anyone is ever told that they need to supplement with fiber, it's just really does what it says it's going to do. And it's essentially a prebiotic fiber supplement to feed the good bacteria that's in your gut. And next is the 1-a-day women's multivitamin gummies, which are specifically formulated to support women's overall health. I'm hoping that all the people who are here today live and all the people who are listening, if they have one takeaway from this conversation, it is that we really need to focus more on the big picture with our health. Stop getting caught up in the weeds and chasing trends and following little tiny things, especially if we're not yet doing the big, most important things. Real wellness starts with the basics. And I do want to give a major thank you to Bayer for bringing us all together and focusing on a realistic, fact-based approach when it comes to wellness, and also for having tried and true products that do exactly what they say they're going to do. All of these Bayer products that I mentioned are available at Walmart, CVS, Amazon, and Walgreens. And I want to thank all of you sitting out there for being my first ever live audience of the Real Stuff podcast. This was so much fun. If you are liking the show, please head over to Apple or Spotify and give the show a rating or review. If you're watching on YouTube, hi. Please drop a comment down below. Let us know what you thought. And as always, if you are liking the show and if you do leave the show a nice rating and review on Apple or Spotify, please take a screenshot of it and send it over to me on Instagram. And as a thank you for doing so, I will send you a little voice note and say thank you. Thank you, New York City. Cheers to everyone. I hope you all get the best night's sleep of your life tonight. And a huge thank you to Bayer and the Ludlow House for having us today. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Stuff podcast. If you're liking the show, please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave us a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below and join in the conversation. And if you're feeling called to be a guest on the show, visit luciefink.com/apply and tell us your story. Thank you so much, as always, for sharing your time and attention with us, and we will see you next time on the Real Stuff podcast.
Please note that this episode may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products and services. Individuals on the show may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to in this episode.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and this product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.